We have here today our CRO and co-founder of Container Solutions, Pini Reznik, who's gonna guide us through to this journey and try to explain how to what WTF is cloud native and specifically how it can help you during an existential crisis. This is also part of our new launch activity. WTF is Cloud Native, which is a publication that aims to collect blogs, articles, and events that are all around the Cloud Native ecosystem to define it and open conversations with the community. So without further ado, I will then pass the mic to Pini Reznik, and over to you, Pini, and good luck.
Thank you, Carla. And welcome, everyone. And I cannot see any of you. This is a webinar format. So if you want to tell me anything, please write in the chat. But I'm not going to look until the end of it because it's distracting me from the main story. So I'm going just to tell the story, and then you will have all the questions. You can put them in the chat right now, and then we will come back to them after the story is finished. So yes, if you want to know what the fuck is cloud native, actually, so you're very much welcome to go to this URL and try to figure out, and it will help us to tell others or figure out together. So Container Solutions, as Carla said, professional services company. We're helping others to move to cloud native, but that's not part of the story. And this story is mostly based on this book from O'Reilly that I co-authored called Cloud Native Transformation, and we have a bunch of different cards. It's based on patterns, so I have this pattern cards and all kind of other different cards that I'm going to use during the presentation. So if you want to know the full story, you can actually buy the book and read it there. You're also very welcome to join our WhatTheF ckInars about what the fuck is actually cloud platform as a product with Matthew Skelton and Jamie Dobson. And it will happen in about a week or so, on 19th. So, what the species have in common? I cannot hear you, so actually, I'll check in. If you want to write in the chat, I will look right now. What those species have in common? Anyone? Okay, then I'll answer myself. They're both extinct, right? They're both extinct. And if you don't know who they are, one of them is dodo. It's a bird that was living in some island, I think Sumatra or something like that. It doesn't really matter. And it was a big bird without natural predators. And at some point, when humans came to the island, they just sort of grabbed them and ate them, all of them. And after just a few years or a decade, there were just no dodo birds anymore. So they had no protection except against natural predators. On the other hand, the dinosaurs were, strong and basically ruled the world, the Earth. But a big event happened and they all died. So this is basically the difference. There are two types of extinctions. One is mass extinction. And we all tend to think that most extinctions happen like dinosaur style, like a big meteor hitting the Earth and everything dies, right? But in reality, only 4% of the extinctions of the extinct species died this way. Absolute majority died like dodos. They were not prepared for. Actually, 99% of the species ever lived are now extinct, and now 96% of them died in the background, just stopped existing without any significant event. And just a bit more about natural selection. There are 4 elements that actually drive this whole process. The first one is variations. So like you probably you studied this in a school, but basically variation means they're in every species, there are slightly different individual, like butterflies or whatever, slightly different colors. The second one is competition. There's always too many of us, or too many of each species. So there is competition for survival. Adaptations, that's where over a long period of time, those who are actually, it's those who are better adapted to current environment, like for example, these brown caterpillars, they're less visible. It means that the green ones will be eaten faster. So it means that they have preference, so it's beneficial adaptations. And eventually, on longer period of time, those who are less adapted to environment, they will disappear, and those who are more adapted will continue existing. So this is the basics of natural selection. And generally speaking, cloud native is one of those beneficial adaptations. Essentially, what it allows is faster and more frequent delivery. So basically, you can provide value to customers much more frequently, and then you can learn what's going on from them, and then faster improve your products. And because of that, you can build better products faster and beat your competition. So this is just beneficial adaptation that helps many companies to survive in the world where there is a demand for fast change. Everyone, we all have mobile phones, they're changing all the time. The web applications change all the time. So we expect consistent flow of changes. And if there is an application, some bank that their application doesn't change too quickly, then we switch to another one. Okay, but what is actually cloud native? So this is the definition of cloud native by CNCF, Cloud Native Compute Foundation, and this is the more or less commonly accepted non-profit body under Linux Foundation that defines cloud native, owns cloud native term, and drives adoption of cloud native. And this is generally what they're saying. So cloud native is about microservices, containers, and dynamic orchestration to build great products faster. So not large scale, not move into cloud, but really build great products faster by faster learning cycle, by faster delivery, and essentially collaboration or co-creation with the customers. This is pretty technical definition, right? It focuses on microservices, which is architecture, type of architecture, containers, and essentially Kubernetes. Today, Kubernetes is the leading orchestrator. So this is a different way to look at it, is that by definition of CNCF, it's about infrastructure in the containers on the cloud. It's about provisioning and architecture. But we believe it's actually a bigger thing. It's also about other things that will support these technical changes, which are more organizational and cultural. So we believe that also things like continuous delivery to make sure that everything is automated and high quality, and DevOps practices and all kind of other things, and all kind of collaborative culture, those are essential pieces that help the teams not just have a functional cloud native setup, but actually use it to produce value for the customers. So that's why it's actually quite difficult. And what happens in the market now is that those companies who actually successfully adopt cloud native, the entire 9 roles of the cloud native maturity matrix, right? So they have all the technology in place and all the organizational change, and they're agile and they're fast, delivering fast. So they can build products very quickly. And what happens if you are, let's say, a financial company and you're producing this traditional company in tech with the current ways of building software, then the value creation is sort of linear and it's consistent, it's good, right? And you're potentially a good company and producing good value for the customers, but the speed of delivery is linear. And what happens with this new technology disruptive companies like Uber or Airbnb, once they come, they can build software dramatically faster. And by fast innovation, by fast learning loop, they can grab the market share in really dramatic speed. I mean, if you look at Uber and Airbnb, those are difficult industries that are global, but also very local. So they exist everywhere, but they were locally executed. And now they're dominated by just one company each. And also, if you think that this is only limited to taxis and hotels, and obviously this is, you can also see similar trends in finance, in supermarkets or anything else. So this technological trend is is everywhere. And the point is that once a disruptive company enters your market, their growth will be exponential. And they will be able to deliver products and capture the market dramatically faster than you can rebuild your existing products unless you are ready. So the other reason cloud native is difficult, in addition to the organizational change and technical changes, is that the ecosystem is actually not exactly ready, right? So there is a lot of different products, and this is very, very partial and quite outdated landscape from the same CNCF. If you go today to the landscape, if you Google for landscape CNCF and you go to the website, you will find that they have now 13 or 1400 of different tools, platforms, companies, vendors, different things that all come under the term of cloud native. And if you want to build, even on technical level, cloud native platform, it would typically require about a dozen or even more different tools to be installed, built, to combine, integrated together, and used in effective ways. So it's actually quite a difficult process still. This is totally normal for a new ecosystem because it only exists for maybe 7 years since Docker was introduced. Basically, it was a trigger for this ecosystem to start. So there is just not enough knowledge and not enough experience, and there are no overarching platforms that you can just buy and use like you would do with VMwares, for example, or virtual machines, where you can buy a single product and it will solve all your problems. So it still requires quite a lot of advanced knowledge and a lot of integration activities. Right, so now I'll go into two different scenarios of cloud native transformation and show how they're sort of similar and different. And the first one is background extinction, which is like Dodo, right? This is the most common one. And assuming that the company, let's say we have a company that is called WealthGrid, and WealthGrid is imaginary company, not real one. It's financial, sort of middle size, maybe 300-500 people, pretty successful, doing good job and delivering value to their customers. And it happened to be in financial space, but it can be anywhere. And they're exactly like those companies that I mentioned before, the traditional ones that they have good market, they have good profit share, they're nice places to work, but their technology is pretty outdated, maybe 15 years old. They're pretty waterfall and traditional, right? Probably we all worked in, or even now working in one of those companies. There are a few people that are important for the story. So the main character of the story is Jenny. She's a middle manager, a technical middle manager, maybe director of engineering or head of something, development or something like that. There's also CEO, who is in charge, obviously, of the strategy and general direction of the company, and there are engineers. And generally speaking, engineers really, really like working with new cool stuff, right? They really want Kubernetes and containers and clouds because it helps them to build better careers, put it on their CVs. But generally, engineers generally like working with new shiny tools. On the other hand, CEO really wants to be competitive, their business goals, the market share and profit margins and shareholders and all kind of other businessy things. He doesn't really care about cloud native, but he understands that without modern technologies, without digital transformation, the company will struggle to exist and deliver or remain profitable. And Jenny is in the middle to sort of reconcile those two worlds and make sure that the digital transformation happens and engineers are happy and everything is working okay. And this is where we start the story. And there, if we want to talk about the potential competition that WealthGrid is facing, then there are a few of those. The first one is somebody like Starling Bank, which is in UK, and the defining factor of Starling Bank, it's obviously it's a new bank, and it's a contender bank that is competing with high street banks. They were they started from scratch, and they could build a fully functional bank from scratch until the first functional account approved by the authorities in less than a year, and about a year, with less than 20 people. So they are very agile. They're actually not that small anymore, right? They're probably a couple thousand people now, and they have millions of customers. Another type of competitor is somebody like Amazon, a tech giant. It could be Amazon, it could be Google, it could be, I don't know, Facebook or whoever else, but generally one of those companies who are really, really good with technology. Amazon is no more bookstore. It's not a retailer per se. It's not a cloud company. It's a technology heavyweight monster, right? They can do whatever they like in any field they like. And recently they acquired supermarkets, but apparently they have banking license too. So they have in US banking license that if they would like to, they could become one of the biggest banks in US or in the world. We don't know what they're going to do with it, but the fact remains. And the other type of the competition is the traditional banks like ING in Holland that they spent the last decade to basically introduce innovation into their development processes. They say all the way from their CEO that they want to be a tech company with a banking license, not a bank. And they really spent the last decade investing massive amounts of effort and money into reinventing themselves as a technology company. So they can deliver value much faster than any other bank in Netherlands or in most of the world. So, and what happens with a company like WealthGrid is that when the story starts, they are pretty well off, right? They have strong market share, they have known competition, they have some reasonable profit margin, but generally it's a good company from business perspective. But in the beginning, when the competition starts, when the Starlink comes into their market or Amazon buys something, then from their perspective, it doesn't look like a big deal, right? Because the impact is really tiny. So they keep doing whatever they're doing. And in meanwhile, when the newcomers use their beneficial adaptation, so when they use the speed, they can deliver a lot of different variations of their products, and they quickly start seeing traction, right? Traction in the market. People start opening accounts and working with them. And once they see any sort of traction, then they get basically unlimited access to funding. And whatever funding they get, they immediately put into innovation. So they hire more engineers, they build better products. And the thing is that at that point, it's still not visible for WealthGrid what's going on, because 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 customers is nothing, right? The impact on the market share is not even visible. But at some point, it slowly starts impacting. So you can see 1%, 2%, 3% of market share is going to the new company. And at that point, the WealthGrid's market share is shrinking, which leads to shrinking in margin. And not typically in company like WealthGrid triggers cost saving. And the cost saving is immediately felt as reduced innovation. So what they do is they reduce size of their development team. And at that point, they basically have no chance, right? So the newcomers, they have unlimited funding. It doesn't matter if it's a starting bank with external VC funding or ING or Amazon. They have unlimited amount of money, resources, and people to put into this innovation and just dominate the market. So at some point, if the response is too late, then it's like Dodo, right? There is no chance. So, okay, then WealthGrid decides to act. And Jenny has a wake-up call, and she's like, we have to do something because we don't want to be a Dodo. And the first thing they do is very obvious. It's like, I mean, Kubernetes on the cloud with containers, a bit of microservices. How hard can it be? Now, apparently it's quite hard, right? So they try to just put a bit of tasks of cloud native in their normal backlog. But the thing is that 6 to 12 months later, they realize that actually not much was done. There is a bit of progress. There are some clusters, some containers, some stuff going around, but generally there is no much progress. It's only partial. And at that point, they think, okay, we basically, it's not going anywhere. In this speed, we will finish in 10 years. So, okay, we have to do something else. And something else is, again, quite consistent with the WealthGrid normal way of working is like, okay, there is a big challenge. We understand that it is actually bigger than we expected. So let's take it seriously. Let's allocate a significant portion of our workforce with significant budget and put them on developing cloud-native platform and moving to microservices. All right, so there starts a big project. There is a full rewrite is planned. The very, very long architectural documents are created. And all these documents go to senior executives, and eventually this massive journey into cloud-native is approved. And the general idea is that we will be cloud native and everything will be great, and we always succeed in this kind of projects. But again, another 6 to 12 months later, maybe only 30% of the cloud native stuff is done, and it's still not in production, and it's still not even known when it's going to be finished. This is like one of those the new airport in Berlin that took extra 10 years to build. So what really is in different way to explain is what really is happening. What the way WealthGrid wants to solve this problem is by essentially splitting the team in half, right? So the blue line is the legacy, it's the original application. And the pink one is cloud native. So what WealthGrid wants to do is basically divide the team 50-50 or something like that, put half of the workforce on the cloud native, and the rest keep on legacy to keep the lights on. Then build the whole cloud native thing, then onboard everyone to the new cloud native thing, and then retire the legacy, right? And the general idea is that, yes, there is some sort of level of delivery. The green line is delivery of value. There will be a bit of dip in delivery, right? Because half of the team is working on something that is not yet production ready. But it's temporary, because once the cloud native platform is finished, the productivity will be so high that we will very quickly repay the technical debt, and everything will be perfect, right? And the estimation for this gap in delivery is around 3 to 6 months typically, maybe a bit longer, because otherwise the company would not go for a full rewrite or reduced delivery of functionality for longer than 6 months, because then there will be significant impact on the business. But unfortunately, in real life, it takes 2 to 5 years to get to full cloud native setup, optimistically. Some actually never get there. And this decrease in delivery in productivity of the company is actually a really big problem, because those are promises to customers. Those are things that sales are closing deals, but the product cannot fulfill the promises. And at that point, and we're talking now about 1 or 2 years into it, and sometimes even longer, at that point, the CEO is like, I had enough. You have to finish it. And there is strong demand from the engineering team to get it done in very reasonable time, like next 3 or 6 months, or the entire innovation project, entire initiative will be scrapped. Okay, so we have to do something else. Now, what we would typically suggest to WealthGrid, and that's how a successful transformation most of the time is happening, is that there is no big rewrite. There is slow ramp up and slow onboarding and sort of consistent incremental change. So what we would typically suggest is start from strategy, figure out what are the actual business goals, what is the business case, is there support, executive support in a team, is all the knowledge in place, or enough knowledge in place to start the process. Then set up the team, even before diving into new innovation, and then start from small research, then POCs, then build the minimum viable product of the cloud native platform, move a couple of products into cloud native environment, educate the rest of the workforce, and then start long ongoing process of migration of products one by one, or teams one by one, from legacy to cloud native. This is an incremental process that takes the same 1 to 3 years, or maybe even longer, but it's very important that there is no interruption to delivery. So actually, in no given moment, there is significant decrease in productivity of the company, right? So there is no pressure to deliver faster, to finish this, because it's not all or nothing, it's just incremental change. And in addition to that, it's very important to understand that this is not one-off transformation. Like once you have cloud native setup, now you're good to go. Because the reason those other companies are winning is not because they're cloud native, but because they are adaptable, because they can change quickly. And to change quickly, you need to continuously invest into the future. This is a very good model from McKinsey from many years ago. And it basically says it's 3 horizons model, that a successful company should invest about 70% of its time and effort and money into delivery of the products that bring money today. This is the legacy products. Majority of the work should go into that. Then significant portion of the work should go into innovation, maybe 25%. Those are the things that will bring the money maybe a year or 2 years from now. And a bit of time, maybe 5%, should go into research, which will bring the money long time from now, and who knows, maybe never. And it's very important to have champions, or people who are moving research to innovation to delivery, but also bringing the ideas from real customers into research. And eventually what you want is to have this kind of 3 horizons approach in your delivery backlog. Yes, there is majority of the work that you are doing is on current products, which we today call legacy, but there is also significant amount of work that goes into innovation. So the new technologies, when they come to the market, they are not a surprise. They are not dramatic change of the way of working, but they're just known technologies and can be introduced to production when they become relevant. But also there is a bit of research and some looking forward and exploring new possibilities. Okay, so that was the story of basically not being Dodo, right? And now is the mass extinction. Now, mass extinction is when a big event happens. And in a way, we are in the middle of that, right? This whole COVID-19 crisis is, in the beginning, we didn't have toilet paper in supermarkets, and we're all working from home. I'm doing the stock from home and not from Bristol. It's a big event. It's something that was unexpected, dramatic, and definitely wiped out significant portion of the world business ecosystem. And what happens in this situation is sort of similar trend as we saw before. There is still the normal ongoing change in market share, and new species or new companies come in and old ones go away and everything. But then a dramatic thing happens. It's not that one is winning the market share from another, but everyone is losing. All the things are stopping, right? And at this point, if in the first part, the beneficial adaptations that helped companies to survive and thrive were around speed of delivery and adjustability to the environment. In these conditions, it's about survival in harsh conditions and about creativity, right? So the companies that can go for longer, so wait out the crisis, they will be the winners. Those who have very short runway, they will fail. So this is like dinosaurs. They just, they didn't survive because they were the winners, right? There was no point to prepare for the dark days. So, and the first thing we would suggest to do in this kind of situation is to evaluate the crisis, right? Is the crisis short, right? Is it something maybe for a few weeks? In a short crisis, probably everyone can just wait it out. So if you lose revenue for 2 weeks, there are very few companies that will fail. In the mid-size crisis, you do want to save costs, but you still want to innovate and not to drop significant projects. But if the crisis is really long, you want to go into some sort of hibernation mode to basically reduce the expenses, the cost to minimum, and survive for as long as as possible, but still preserve the critical capabilities that will help you to thrive after the crisis is over. Now, I started doing this talk about 6 months ago. At that point, we had absolutely no idea. We were just a few weeks into this crisis. It was pretty obvious that it wasn't a short one. It wasn't for a few weeks. But we hoped it would be medium, something like 6 months. And now we are, it's not a year, but probably about 8-9 months since the beginning of this crisis. It's pretty obvious that it's a long one. And although we feel a bit of positivity and hope, it's still not over. So, right. So, and before I talk about how we actually solve this crisis or how we address this crisis, I want to talk a bit about patterns. Now, as I said before, the book and the whole research that we have done in the last year is based on patterns. And the general idea behind the patterns is this. This is a quote from Ludwig Wittgenstein, and he said, "The limits of my language are limits of my world." So basically, if you have no words for certain concepts, you don't even know that they exist. There is no way you can actually address or solve problems in a domain that you don't understand and you have no words in, right? So actually, the first step into solving a problem that you don't understand is to create language to describe the problem. And this is exactly what original patterns research was aiming to do. It was done by Christopher Alexander. He was an architect, a real architect, not software, and he wrote this and other books about patterns, pattern languages, and theoretical background about patterns. And the general idea of a pattern is that there are three main elements: patterns, languages, and designs. So patterns are like words, right? So it's imagine table, chair, sofa. Those are all patterns. They tell us, so we agree what it actually means, like table, but it's also not really clear what, like there are many ways to implement table, to build a table. So what it allows us is to have like a common word for a commonly used concept. Language is the collection of words on certain topic, like furniture language. So all these words about furniture, they all combine in a furniture language, and designs are stories. So there's a square table and 4 chairs and a sofa in a room. Basically, this story is extremely difficult to tell if we have no common language or no common words that describe table or chair or sofa. Right, so imagine you talk to somebody that never saw a table, or maybe they saw a table, but but you need to start from scratch to describe a table, and it's very difficult, right? So the idea is to create a language. The original idea from Christopher Alexander was to create a language between the architects and the normal people who actually buy houses and hire architects to build a house or an office building for them. And the problem that he saw at that point was that there was no common language between architects and regular people. So the architects would use this jargon and all kind of different weird words that normal people didn't understand. And that's why it was sort of whatever architects said, people had to accept because they didn't even know how to say what are the other options available. Another example of this is this car. This is an old Volkswagen Golf. So we all know Volkswagen, like we know the car, we can understand main parts of the car, like wheels, chairs, doors, whatever. But very few people understand or have language for the inside of the car, components of the car, only mechanics or people who build cars. So what it means is that if I want to improve a car, I can only operate in like terms of an engine, a faster engine, or more powerful engine and horsepower or something like that. But if two mechanics talk, they can talk about tiny details and discuss things that, or how to improve things or how to create things on much lower level. So unless you have this language, you cannot really effectively talk or efficiently talk to a mechanic about much deeper challenges. And the idea of patterns in cloud native transformation is to create this kind of language between the people who understand cloud native transformation and the people who need to go through cloud native transformation. So together they can describe the needs, discuss the different options, and together decide how to continue. So those are the patterns. And those are the patterns that we originally created for the first scenario of background extinction, like dynamic strategy, value hierarchy. Those are strategic patterns. And those are a bit more organizational and a bit more technical. And they're still relevant also for second type of extinction, for the Corona crisis. Right? So the remote team that we used to have before the Corona crisis are even more relevant now. The creativity is very important, and public cloud becomes extremely important. But we also created patterns that are specifically relevant for the fast extinction, for the current crisis. For example, now our marketing team has shifted dramatically from physical events that don't exist anymore into virtual events. So there is always there are always new ways to adjust the business to the new environment and potentially change the business model that will work better. Right? Many companies are are thriving now. I mean, Zoom and Mural and all kind of companies that are creating virtual work environment, they're thriving, and their business model is reinforced. But those companies that were struggling under remote work, they should have been thinking how to adjust their workforce and adjust their business model to this new world. And there are also other patterns like cost reduction and full transparency and innovation that are very important for a company under crisis. And generally, so by using these patterns, the transformation or the journey that company would go through during this kind of dramatic crisis looks like something like this. So in the beginning, the revenue is normal. So this is the pre-crisis situation. And then instead of sort of slow change in market share, there is a dramatic drop in revenue. And so no one is buying anything. In this situation, the first most important thing is strong leadership, right? It's in this situation, people are genuinely scared of what's going to happen. And they really are looking for a figure, a person, a group of people who are confident and know what's going to happen. And they not knowing what's going to happen, but they can create the presence, the leadership to drive everyone into the right direction. The second thing is about starting defensive actions, like cut costs, right? Try to sell more, try to ask for favors, get some programs, government programs going. Then it's very important to keep the future options going, right? Not to let critical people go that you will need after the crisis is over. And in the deepest, darkest days, the most important thing is to protect the culture, right? It's about being together, helping each other to survive, supporting each other, trying to celebrate even smaller wins, and making sure that people can continue functioning. And once the crisis is close to the end, it's important to prepare and execute the exit strategy, right? The exit from the crisis strategy. And those who will switch to offensive or from defense to opportunity-seeking behavior, they will be the winners from the crisis. So once the people, like now there is a feeling that everything is getting better, maybe there is vaccine, maybe US elections give hope to some people. So there is this is the time to invest more into the future, find the resources and people and time, and start working on the future. And that's the time, those who will do that, they will emerge as strong leaders instead of getting lost somewhere in the middle. So it's important to cut costs in the beginning, otherwise there will be not enough survival run rate. On the other hand, it's also important to continue investing in innovation and keeping doors open so you can recover and emerge as a leader. And this is in more detail, a lot of patterns, but I won't go into that this time. So really last point is just sort of a piece of warning. Those are not patterns, those are behavioral biases, and I have a bunch of them. But the general idea, and if you haven't read this book yet, I really recommend you to read this book from Daniel Kahneman. The general idea is that we have two systems in our brain. One is intuitive and fast. That's the hunches and gut feeling. That's where we make decisions most of the time this way. Another one is slow and deliberate, which is logical, and but it's rarely used. So most of the time we use the intuitive one. The problem with intuitive one is that it works most of the time, but it fails in predictable ways sometimes. And I just want to show a couple of those those failures, and they're called biases, cognitive biases. And the first one is illusion of control, which is tendency to overestimate one's degree of influence over external events. Now, this is correct for both crises, for slow one and fast one. We think that we are in control. Our all systems are built around controlling the outcome, about deterministic, predictable outcomes of anything we do. But this is illusion. Our world is too complicated for that. And sometimes we just need to let the control go and embrace the ambiguity and just step into a bit of unknown. And the second pattern, second bias I want to mention is pseudo-certainty effect. And that's the tendency of to make risk-averse choices if the expected outcome is positive, but make risk-seeking choices to avoid negative outcomes. In more human language, it means when the world is good, people avoid taking risks. So that is more relevant for the first type of crisis, where if company is making a lot of money, it will typically not go into significant change because change is risky. And people try to avoid risks when the life is good. But when the life is getting difficult, when the competition comes in, then people will do crazy, stupid things. They will take any random risk to just feel that they're doing something. So it's not nice to be neither of them. So don't. And start preparing. And I invite you to, again, to come to our website to learn more about cloud native. This is a new thing that we are going to invest a lot in it, and we are really looking for other people to come and help us to figure out what the fuck it actually is cloud native. And that's it. Thank you. And I still have 8 minutes to answer some questions. Yes, I have. Questions. Yes, please. You can go to the chat and, oh, actually, I'm trying to figure out if there are any questions.
I didn't see any questions at the moment, but okay. There is, will the slide be shared? Yes?
Sure.
I did ask a question to the audience because I was curious to know if any of the people here today are going through a cloud native transformation, which phase of the journey they are in, if they're doing one, or if they're considering to start this kind of project.
Okay, there is a question from Teresa.
Yeah.
What action did you take specifically to survive this crisis with Container Solutions? So I have to say that, I mean, this is very nice to say, to tell all these things in the hindsight, right? And now we are a long time into this crisis. We feel good that we are more or less, hopefully, almost over. But it was difficult in the beginning, right? It was obvious that it was dramatic existential crisis for us. And there were all the conversations about selling our services just stopped overnight. And the first thing we did is this story is totally based on our experience. The first thing we did was about strong leadership. And I think the person who was the most the most connected to the crisis was our CEO, Jamie Dobson. He became this figure that the strong leader, creating the sort of good feeling for everyone that there is somebody who knows what's going on. So he was doing weekly updates. He was updating everyone what's going on. He started series of different activities like fundraising and all kind of other things, and managing a lot of basically things to make sure that we can survive for longer. So he was calling it stretching the cash. On the other hand, I was at that point, still I am in charge of sales, and we were trying to do all kind of different things, trying to sell things as much as we could, all kind of random activities, just sort of a bit of panic and try everything. Once we understood that it's not working, and we sort of slowed down and used the time to build our marketing capabilities, build our sales capabilities, and prepare for the exit. We did cut salaries on average by 25% over this period, but we didn't let anyone go, right? We insisted not to let people go, and we didn't. So it was really difficult time, and there was about 6 months without any sales, right? And it was all about just keep surviving until the sales come again. But a lot of effort went into culture, into people, supporting people. We have psychologists, 2 psychologists that are working in Container Solutions that spend a lot of time helping people to just come through this. It's a long story. I can't speak more about this, but I don't have that much time. I'll try to answer other questions. Yes, we have done that. That is the question that actually Carla asked. So James is saying, yes, we have done the split with the idea of 6-12 months to get the new cloud native option ready to show. Right. Okay, I'll try to answer the question from Jonas. Right. Okay. So, should we? Short version. Should we embrace? So Simon Wardley said that DevOps is the new legacy, and we should embrace serverless transformation. Right. I think it's not about transformation. It's not about transformation one-off project like cloud native, meaning Kubernetes. Let's say Kubernetes is cloud native. It's not about serverless. It really is about ability to change to whatever you like. It's about creating the processes where you can work on all 3 horizons. On horizon 1, it's the basics, it's the legacy. That's what works now. You shouldn't stop. You should continue working on the products that bring you money right now. You should work on innovation. You should work on everything else. You probably want, if you're a technology company, you probably want to know if serverless is a good idea for you or not. But it really is not a one-off transformation from bad to good stage. No, it's transformation from a place where it takes 1 or 2 years to adjust to a new environment to the place where you can adjust to a new environment in a matter of months or weeks. Right? It's about being able to switch from Kubernetes to serverless in a matter of weeks instead of a matter of years. That's the real transformation. Yes. How cloud native transformation different from RPA? I don't know what is RPA. I'll Google it. Robotic process automation. Is that RPA? Okay. Yes, that's what I Googled and found out. I can guess what robotic process automation means, but I'll try to answer without going to that because it's not a term that I know too well. Cloud native transformation is about combination of technical and organizational and cultural elements that all together allow company to move faster, to change faster and deliver faster. That requires very strong automation. And the reason is that humans are by definition slow. So the process automation is absolutely essential in cloud native, but this is not the goal. It's not about the automation itself. It is about ability to deliver faster with the support of automation, right? Hopefully that answers the question. So now is time up, I guess. I encourage you to ask other questions. You can find me on Twitter, and this is my Twitter account, Pini42, or you can email us somehow. I'm sure you can find us. But still, I encourage you to go to WTF Cloud Native, subscribe, and thank you for listening.